Hello, it is Lynx here, and today I'm going to be reading a one-shot with around 4,500 words by myself on AO3. It is entitled Finding the Lost. Yes, okay, but, small little thing. You know what, I'll say that after I get through all the things. So, it's rated general audiences, no archive warnings apply, male, my hero, because that's all I can, successfully write for some reason. It's Bkdk. If you don't like it, get out. I know Pride Month just ended, but we still like the gays. Because, yes, we love the gays. There's also Aizawa and Yamada. Those two are married. They get married because, yeah. They also adopt Izuku. There's found family. Mineta's expelled. Shinzo comes in and replaces Mineta because, yes. Yeah. Anyways, let me get into this. So, before I read the summary, I'm going to read my notes. So, this is actually for someone. This one is for Sihleaf. So, this is a fun little story I wrote for him because all of his socials are under Sihleaf. Because it's his birthday. Happy birthday, Leaf. Okay, so I wrote that we're kind of friends because I wrote this back in June. But I have since been told that me and him are in fact friends. So, yay. And we kind of just harass each other a little. Very, very fun. Like, he posted my 1.5K special on his YouTube community page. I mentioned him in the description of some of my Podfics. Just small little funny things like that. Anyways, I decided to write him a Bkdk dadzawa fic because I'm pretty sure these are some of his favorite things to see in a story. So here's a one-shot for him. And if the notes or summary feel weird, just know that I write them before I've even started writing the story. I'm also sorry if any of this is out of character. I'm not the best writer. I feel like I'm better at making podfics than writing, but I promise I'm trying. I'm also not the best at romance or familial things. I don't know. I just read a lot of it and clearly have too much faith in myself. Alright, now that we're done with the notes, let's do the summary. An 8-year-old Izuku is lost and scared. Aizawa finds him and gives him the help he needs. Then, almost 6 years later at UA, he meets Bakugo Katsuki, who he thinks he vaguely remembers from before he got lost. Or, Aizawa helps little Izuku, Big Izu meets his Kachan, Bkdk happens. Okay, now that we are through with the summary and the notes and everything, let's get in with it. While out on patrol, Aizawa typically caught villains, stopped petty theft, and saved civilians from things like assault. What he didn't normally do was find children, let alone what looked like a 5-year-old. More often than not, the only kind of child he would find would be some punk doing drugs, or a teen up on a rooftop. But there he was, in a back alleyway with a 5-year-old. The kid looked so small, and Aizawa just felt bad for the poor kid. Seeing the little one ball up at the side of Aizawa, the hero crouched down as if trying his best not to scare the kid. "Hey, kid, I don't want to scare you. I'm just here to help. I'm a hero," he said, while showing the green-haired child his license. "Do you know what those are?" The kid just stared, mouth and eyes unmoving. But then, Aizawa saw his hands start to move when the kid started signing. Eraserhead. "Yeah, I'm a Razorhead. What's your name?" Aizawa responded. The kid lit up with joy at the knowledge that the hero in front of him knew how to sign. He then raised his hands and said, "My name is Izuku." "Alright, Izuku, do you know where you are, or who your parents are, or where you live?" Aizawa asked, trying to get something out of the kid. "No, they never let me know our address, and I was always asleep in the car. I don't know anything." Izuku signed. "Hey, that's okay, kid. Do you know your last name?" "People would always say something like Midori, but that's all I can remember." The kid responded. "Hey, that could be enough. Do you want me to try and find your family in the system, Izuku?" Aizawa questioned. "Would it be okay if I didn't want to go back?" Izuku asked. "It could be, but are you willing to give me a reason why you don't want to go back to your family? Are they neglectful?" Aizawa was worried, because typically kids didn't want to not go back, they just wanted to go home usually. "It's because I'm quirkless. They don't like me the same way that they like Tengo. He has a quirk." "You could just be a late bloomer. I didn't get my quirk until I was 6. How old are you, kid?" Aizawa wanted to try and gather as much information as possible about the young kid, because Izuku needed help. "I'm 8 years old." Izuku started signing, "and I have the pinky toe joint."
Oh, kid, it's gonna be okay. I promise, Izuku. How about you come home with me for the night? I know you have no reason to trust me, but in the morning I could get you approved to stay with me under my emergency foster license. Izuku's eyes lit up, and then he rushed over and hugged Aizawa. Even though the man wasn't a huge fan of physical contact, Izuku had just gone through so much in so little time. The kid needed someone to trust. So that night, Izuku went home with Aizawa and stayed the night. Now that Izuku had woken up, it was around 11 in the morning already. The poor kid had just been so tired that he had been asleep for 10 hours. The first thing Izuku had noticed when he woke up was that he wasn't outside or even in his bed. Just then, remembering the events of the night before, he realized he was in a hero's house. Not just any hero, but his favorite hero. Izuku was in Eraserhead's apartment. Oh. That meant he had been kicked out of his house, too. He couldn't go back. They didn't want him. Not anymore, at least. He was just a stupid, quirkless Deku. Aizawa, somehow sensing the kid's panic, walked into Izuku's new room and rushed over at the sight of a small child curled up in a ball crying. Hey, Izuku, it'll be okay. Here, try breathing with me. Aizawa inhaled, held it, and then exhaled and held it. The pattern of breathing repeated until Izuku was calm enough to sign to Aizawa and explain what was wrong. While grabbing Aizawa's shirt tightly, Izuku started to sign with his free hand. Parents. And disowned. Just by the two words alone, Aizawa had gathered that an 8-year-old quirkless Izuku had been disowned by his family. This kid was his now. He didn't care if Zashi or Nem made fun of him. The poor kid just needed a home where he could be supported. Izuku was 8 and needed a home, and Aizawa was 23 with an empty apartment. He could easily have one of his two friends move in with him to help him take care of a child, but before he could consider that, he had to sort things out with Tsukauchi. Now Masa had been having a great day, but then Aizawa fucking Shota, pro hero Eraserhead, walked in with a small child on his hip and a death glare. God, he already needed some coffee. Aizawa, I swear to fucking God, why the hell do you have a child? Now Masa all but screamed. Okay, so to make a long story short, the kid was abandoned and I found him. Aizawa started, and his name has something to do with Midori, and his first name's Izuku. Now Masa typed, then started talking. Okay, so his name is Midori Izuku based on those clues in his looks. Parents are... He paused. Not on the record? That couldn't be possible unless they legally put him up for adoption. Oh, kid. He's staying with me, Masa. This kid is mine. Aizawa said softly and very protectively of the 8-year-old. Izuku, upon hearing this, turned towards Aizawa and started signing. You want me? But why? The older man crouched to the ground and started explaining. Izuku, kid, I have known you less than 12 hours, but I can tell that you just need a stable home and someone who loves you. I may not be the best example of a parental figure, but I can already tell that I need a kid like you. You have so much potential to just light up, I can tell. I love you, kid. I want to help you. Izuku started sobbing, but for a kid who he had never heard make a noise, he was crying loudly. Then he heard a very quiet voice whisper, "Thank you." He had never heard a voice so broken, like almost never used before. It must have been a while since the kid had talked. Boy, did Aizawa wonder what happened in that kid's house to make him not speak in what felt like years. Aizawa had saved the lost. 2 years later. It was now the day of the 2-year anniversary since Izuku had met Aizawa, and although he was forever thankful, he did kind of miss his old life. If Izuku had thought really hard, he thought he could have had a friend when he was really little. But he wished he knew his friend's real name, because all he could remember was the nickname Kachan. He thought he missed Kachan, or at least the memories of him, but that's besides the point. After 2 years, Izuku rarely went mute anymore. They had discovered he had selective mutism after getting him therapy and other mental help a couple of months after Aizawa had gained custody of Izuku. Speaking of things that happened a couple of months after Izuku was officially under Aizawa's care, Yamada Hisashi had moved in with them. And then a year after that, Aizawa and Yamada started dating. And Izuku, being the gremlin he was, immediately started shipping the two, calling Aizawa his dad and Yamada his papa, or sometimes his Papa Mike. The two men got married, and now Izuku was officially Aizawa Izuku on paper. But at school, he was Yamazawa Izuku, just in case anybody from school recognized his surname, even though the chance was pretty low. And now Izuku has an aunt! Her name was Kayama Nemuri, but to him, she was just Auntie Nem. At the school Izuku ended up at, he made friends. Well, more like a friend, but His name was Shinzo Hitoshi. He had fluffy purple hair and a super cool brainwashing quirk. And the coolest part yet was now that Izuku was 10, his dad and papa were starting to train him to be a hero, and he could go to UA when he grew up. Izuku was so excited to grow up. Even if his dad insisted that he shouldn't grow up, Izuku wanted a chance to find out for himself. Plus, it's not like he could just stop growing, even with his dad's constantly teasing him, asking why he was so short. It's not his fault his genes sucked. But hey, at least he got to train to be a hero. 4 years later. The entrance exam. Izuku had passed the UA entrance exam. And not only did he make it into the hero course, but he also made it into class 1A, which was the same class that his dad taught. And he'd have his papa for English class, but he did have to call his dad and papa by their real names at school, instead of just calling them the same way he does at home. It was now time for the first day of school, and Izuku was just waiting in the teacher's lounge before he had to go to class. And in typical fashion, Izuku was like a mini copy of his dad, and was in a sleeping bag almost the same as his dad's, but instead it was smaller and a dark forest green. One of the main reasons that he was able to just wait in the teacher's lounge was because most of the staff already knew that he was Aizawa and Yamada's kid, as he had visited several times in the past 6 years. But it was then around 30 minutes until class started, so he said his goodbyes to his dad and then walked towards his classroom with the company of his papa. They did eventually have to split because the classrooms for the hero course and the general education course were in different parts of the school. Arriving at class, he discovered that he was not, in fact, the first one to arrive. Instead, the first one there had been Ida, who he had met the few times he was forced to go to a gala with his papa. They said polite hellos, and then Izuku sat down in C18 after looking at the board. In front of him, there was supposed to be someone named Bakugo Katsuki. It was strange, because he thought he recognized the name, even though he didn't know where from. Could it be possible that he remembered the name from before his dad had saved him? Izuku didn't think so, but there was still always a chance. But still, the only thing he could really remember was the name Kachan. But it couldn't be. There was no way. It wouldn't even make sense. About 15 minutes after Izuku got to class, more people started to arrive, and among them was Bakugo. When the apparently blonde teenager had found that his seat was in front of Izuku's, he scrunched up his face and sat down. Izuku was confused, but there wasn't anything he could do about it. A little later, and it was time for class to start. Aizawa came into the classroom in his sleeping bag and looked like some kind of caterpillar, or at least Izuku thought so. Even though Izuku had noticed him, that did not mean that the rest of the class had. Up until Ida had seen him on the floor and told the rest of the class to take their seats, for their teacher had arrived. 2 minutes. It took 2 minutes for anyone to notice me and direct the rest of the class to their seats. That needs to improve if you Hellspawn wish to become heroes, Aizawa said, while standing up and finally getting out of his sleeping bag. The class then became so silent at that statement that Izuku almost laughed. Then, all of the students grabbed their gym uniforms from the front of the classroom to go to the quirk assessment. Bakugo was in shock. He had finally made it to UA and to his classroom, but behind him sat Yamazawa Izuku. There was someone with the same first name as his Izuku, but the last name wasn't the same, so it just had to be somebody with the same name. He missed Izuku. He was so sorry to Izuku. Katsuki had never gotten the proper chance to apologize for all the terrible things he had done. The relentless bullying, the death threats, the hatred towards a kid for just not having a quirk. He hated his younger self for not accepting Izuku for who he was back then. Nobody but him and his old classmates and teacher knew the kind of person Katsuki used to be. But the week after Izuku went missing, Katsuki finally admitted that he was scared. Scared of what happened to the sweet little Izuku. Dark forest green hair, 4 freckles on each cheek, and a go-lucky attitude that could brighten up anybody's day. Yamazawa, the kid in his class at UA who was also named Izuku, was pretty similar if Katsuki thought hard enough about it. But just a little different. He had what looked like black curly hair, maybe some freckles, but he looked really tired and like he didn't care about anything. Yamazawa was actually pretty similar to Aizawa-sensei. During the quirk assessment, Katsuki learned that the person that was similar to his Izuku had gotten first place in the entrance exam, but had also taken the recommendation exam too. Who did the boy know? In addition to having gotten first place in the entrance exam, he had also gotten first place in the quirk test too. He had never stated his quirk, so Katsuki was curious as to what it was. The person in last place, Minoru, who had gotten expelled as Aizawa-sensei had said previously, Why was he just allowed to expel people? Katsuki didn't complain though, because he had seen the way Mineta was acting towards the girls in the class. He was glad that the pervert was gone. It was then at the end of the school day that they learned that their normal classes would start the next day, and then the class would be moving into dorms over the weekend. It had apparently been a last minute decision to move into dorms, but it made sense after all. Some people might live further from UA and need an easier commute. Others might have not had a stable home situation. Even though the dorms were optional, Katsuki still decided to move into them. His mom didn't really act the best towards him, and he would feel better if he wasn't living with her. She had changed right after Izuku went missing, but then she went back to being kind of abusive after a few months. Now that he was thinking about it, Auntie Inko hadn't been that good of a mother towards Izuku either. Katsuki never really understood why he bullied Izuku, but with the things he knows now, Katsuki might have had a crush. It really does seem cliche for someone to bully another kid because of a crush, but Katsuki just thought that was how it worked. After all, he was always told that his mother loved him, but she still slapped him. He thought she was showing love even if it was just he. Katsuki got the two feelings confused, and instead of being nice, he bullied his crush. Katsuki had a crush on his childhood best friend. Oh god. Teenage Katsuki still felt the same way, even if it was just through memories. He still loved Izuku. Moving into the dorms, Class 1A didn't have their rooms already assigned to them, so they picked where they wanted to be. Izuku, in his normal antisocial fashion, chose to have his room on the 5th floor, even if it meant that all of his stuff had to be up there. But Bakugo, he just wanted to be near Izuku, just in case it was the same kid from his childhood. Katsuki was taking the risk. He had to. So, Izuku and Katsuki ended up having their rooms right next to each other. Since the class moved in on Friday night and Saturday morning, that left Sunday for the students to bond and become friends with each other. Since the two boys had become neighbors, they actually kind of became friends. Izuku was confused, because the kid who sat in front of him in class was trying to become friends with them. He wasn't gonna complain because it's not like he's had a friend since before he met his dad and got saved, but he was still confused. Why was Bakugo trying to befriend him out of all the people in the class, or even the school? It was nice to have a friend, he guessed. It was foreign, but still welcome. One of their first conversations had been about the meaning of Izuku's last name, because, being real, Mountain Swamp wasn't the best last name. So Izuku answered, saying it was a combination of his parents' last names. But what he didn't mention was that he was adopted, and that wasn't his biological last name. Katsuki had just given up all hope of thinking that Yamazawa was his Izuku because of his last name's meaning. It was a mashup of his parents' last names, so there was no way that it could have used to be Midoriya, because he never mentioned that he was adopted. At this rate, Katsuki was never going to see Midoriya Izuku ever again. He was the Deku to his Kachan. That was their nickname for each other. Katsuki had been Kachan, and Izuku had been Deku. He felt bad for the nickname, for the other meaning useless. He got to have something normal, but the other was called useless. Katsuki felt so guilty. Maybe being nice to this Izuku would make him feel better, even if it wasn't the same person. Izuku was a pretty rare name, all things considered, but he still couldn't be the same person. His Izuku had green hair, Yamazawa has black. His Izuku was happy, Yamazawa was tired. His Izuku was missing, Yamazawa was here. Aizawa was already fond of his new class. He only expelled one student so far, and Izu seemed happy. And not only that, but it seemed that he had made a friend. Bakugo Katsuki. Reading through the files, he had gotten to Bakugo's and started reading. Bakugo Katsuki, Aldera Junior High. Student seems to have matured since primary schooling at Aldera Primary. Evidence of separation anxiety present. Mumbles about a Midoriya Izuku can be heard, and seem to be what is causing separation anxiety. Midoriya Izuku went to Aldera Primary with Bakugo and was seen around him at almost all times. 0 black marks, 0 lunch attentions, 0 detentions, 0 suspensions. Recommended for hero school. Would be a good fit. Finishing up reading the kid's file, Aizawa felt remorse. When he had saved Izuku, he had taken away a kid's best friend. Or at least that's what it seemed like in the file. Maybe it's a good thing that the two are becoming friends again. Not knowing whether to let the boys know that they knew each other, Shota decided to ask his husband. Hey Zashi, I have something that I don't know what to do about. You want to give me your opinion about it? Yeah, what is it, Sho? Hisashi questions. So, do you remember me telling you about how Izuku used to mumble or cry about someone named Kachan? The black-haired man starts. Yeah, pretty sad thing, but why? He was confused on why this was being brought up after so long because the kid had stopped talking about anybody from before about a year after he was saved. Well, there's a student in my class who was named Bakugo Katsuki. I decided to read his file today since he has started to become friends with Izuku, and just look at this. Aizawa gives the file over to his husband to be read. Hisashi read through the file, then looked up and spoke. Oh, they were... He stops himself, then continues. The kids were best friends. No wonder. Izuku just seems so happy now with a friend. But you said you needed my opinion. Shota, what are you planning on doing? They don't remember each other, Hisashi. The thing I need your opinion on is if I should tell them. Tell them what, Sho? Hisashi states that they were best friends, Hisashi. Aizawa yells, because god damn it, it's obvious. Sho, I don't know what to do. It's been 6 years since they've seen one another. What if they don't remember anything about each other? Maybe tell them if they become closer or figure it out on their own. I don't know. Hisashi expressed. Neither man knew what to do, so they decided to just let it be. Izuku and Katsuki had both been hanging out in the younger's room, just chilling and talking, and eventually up came the topic of childhoods. Hey Bakugo, you kind of remind me of someone I used to be friends with. What was your childhood like? Izuku asked. Oh my gosh, thank you for asking. I had been waiting for you to ask that, but I didn't know if it would cross any boundaries. But I used to live, next door to a small green kid with freckles and a happy-go-lucky attitude. Then he moved to an apartment nearby, so I only saw him at school. But I was a jerk and pushed him away. I even bullied him. I felt so bad for everything I did. And then he went missing when we were 8, and I haven't seen him since. Katsuki confessed, sounding sadder and sadder as he spoke. Kachan? Izuku stuttered out. No, did your friend call you Kachan? How? How did you know? Katsuki asked in pure shock. I remember a Kachan. It was from before my dad had saved me. I couldn't remember his name, his face, or his voice. I just remembered that he was my Kachan. Izuku. Katsuki started. Can I call you that? Is that okay? He got a nod in response and then continued, Look, Izuku, I never forgot about you, even after you left. I'm so sorry for everything that I did to you. I thought you had just died after you left. Nobody ever told me anything. I thought you had just disappeared. I never stopped thinking about you, though. And fairly recently, I realized that back then I had a crush on you. As a small child, I already know who I wanted. I know that's not an excuse for what I did back then, but I still like you now. The version of you from back then, the version of you from now. Both versions of you are amazing. Izuku had tears running down his face. Kachan, I missed you so much. He sobbed into the older boy's chest. At some point, the two boys moved to be hugging each other. Neither had known that they needed comfort, but clearly they did. Wait, you said you liked me back then, and still like me now. Izuku mumbled. I did say that. Katsuki responded nervously. What if I told you I liked you back? Izuku asked. The two had only known each other for a few months at this point. It was only August and school had started in April, but they bonded quickly. Maybe it was the pull of old childhood friends reconnecting. Maybe they just needed someone that much. But they were right for each other. I'd be okay with that. Katsuki responded, now sitting on the floor with Izuku. You would? Izuku looked up at Katsuki. Yeah, I would. He responded breathlessly. Then, what comes next? Izuku questioned. Well, we could make it official and call each other a boyfriend. We could announce it, keep it low-key, or just not hide it but not make it too obvious. I know that I want you, Izuku. You mean so much, and I would love to date you. Katsuki answered. I wouldn't be opposed to dating you. I would love to be your boyfriend, Katsuki. And honestly, I don't think we need to hide it. Let's just not announce it, though. If people pick up on it, they know. If people don't, well, then they don't. But I am immediately going to tell my dad and my papa. They're going to be so excited for me, I can tell. Izuku proposed. I'm fine with all of that. You want me to go meet your parents? If so, we could go do it now if you wanted. Katsuki replied. Yeah, let's go see my parents. And the two boys went. Katsuki had been shocked to see this Izuku's parents were, in fact, his teachers. His homeroom teacher and his English teacher, to be exact. To say he was shocked would be an understatement, but hey, at least the two men approved of their son's boyfriend. Life then kept continuing on until eventually by the end of the second year, all the students in Class 1A knew that the two were dating. Even Shinzo, who had joined at the beginning of the second year to finally fill the spot that was left when Mineta got expelled. The two friend groups, originally the Izu crew and the Baku squad, got merged, and just became the gang of gays. All in all, Izuku and Katsuki loved each other, and Aizawa and Yamada approved. Their son was the light of their life, along with his boyfriend. The mentality was, as long as Izuku was happy. Izuku was always happy with Katsuki, and it always made everybody else around them happy. That's the end, folks. Thanks so much for sticking around with this shit show. I tried my best to write it, and hopefully everybody liked it. As a treat for sticking around through the entire story, here's a piece of writing advice. If you don't like to plan out your stories, don't worry, neither do I. Just give yourself a deadline. I told myself that this had to be done by July 1st, and I finished it in like 3 days of writing. I don't ask me how. I just wrote like 2K words per day. Well, kind of. It was a little silly, but anyways, all right. So that was it. It was so fluffing cute. Why did I say fluffing? I can say fucking. It was so fucking cute. I genuinely don't know what I was on when I wrote that, but it's adorable, and I I wrote this. I finished writing this yesterday, and I'm reading this today. I'm literally almost about to cry. It was that sweet. I finished writing this on June 16th, and I'm reading this June 17th, and I'm about to cry. Hey, Leaf. I hope you like this. Anyways, remember to eat, sleep, drink your water, and take your meds. And when you sleep, go to bed at a reasonable time. You guys can't clown on me. It's almost 4 p.m. and school's out for the summer. Yeah, because keep in mind, I'm recording this like 2 weeks in advance. It's so cute. Anyways, remember, kids, be do and crime gay.